What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Today we are talking about Season 3, Episode 24, Shakaar. Shakaar, like Picard and Shakaar made a baby.
Gross. You know what? I could be into
Shakaar, what are you would you like to make a baby? A Shakaar, perhaps? We have just come back from vacation.
And we are back, baby!
Yes, a reference to another podcast no one listens to. Thank you all for tolerating our absence, or having just a better week.
Having the best time of your life, yeah.
Did you just feel like your week was just a little bit better? Was the sun shining a little bit brighter? Well, that's because we were off for a week, but we are right here back in your feeds. In fact, we are doing, what do you call it, a secret drop, a dragon drop today?
Drop? Is that a real thing, or is that something we made up? I don't know.
I think that's something you made because I'm not exactly sure how much sense that makes, but nothing we do makes a great deal of sense. Mike, how are you? How was your vacation?
It was good, man. We had a little excitement to start, but it ended up being pretty relaxing. I will say, the kids who used to be little baby boys are now getting more grown. I think they're 9 and 11. And, you know, I was a little bummed at first because they were spending a lot of time on the devices, you know, looking at the YouTubes and playing the games and stuff. But then they convinced me to teach me how to play Fortnite, Keith. And
oh, you're Fortniting.
Yeah, it's not like a game I want to get into, but they did teach me, and they had the best time of their lives because we got a victory roar where we won my first game.
Oh, nice.
Which I think they just put you up against bots mostly your first few games so that you feel like you can win.
Smart.
But the kids thought that they had Sherpa'd me into victory, and we're so excited. CEO Jen had a great time. It was great hanging out with my in-laws. It was actually a good week. But I am happy to be home. I'm here to report.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Yeah, I also had a lovely trip up to Vermont to see my family and spent time with my 9-year-old nephew.
Any fart songs?
No new fart songs. I think he is already well on his way to becoming the most musically talented person in the family. So he's going to have to write his own darn fart songs from here on out. But we played a lot of games. We had fun. We played zucchini baseball.
Ooh.
Which is always good up in the country because, my father grows everything. So we got zucchinis
What is the ball? Like a tomato?
Zucchini. So
everything
we
is
had
zucchini?
a zucchini, I can't even show it in frame, but absolutely
well,
almost 3 feet long.
You do one hand, I'll do the other. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I cut it up, and then we that was the ball, and we smashed it all over the place and fed it to the chickens. I mean, it was very Vermont,
cool.
but we had a blast doing that. But I can't believe it's been so long since we've talked about Deep Space Nine.
I missed it. I missed it quite a bit, actually. I found that of the 2 shows we watch, this is the one I missed.
Well, because we've done 15 episodes of one show and 50, 60 of the other one. So we're obviously, we spent a lot more time with these people, and they're our new family and friends. So even though we're seeing our own Moogie.
I'm going to keep it. Jen loved Moogie. Boy, I had to hear about Moogie. Jen loves Moogie. She wants to talk about Moogie. She wants to be Moogie. But I will say, you know how when people spend so much time with each other, Keith, they start to become one another? You know, people see dogs and their humans becoming the same. Well,
sure.
We've spent a lot of time apart, Keith, but it turns out that even apart, we grew the exact same beard. It's the same color. It's the same length. Everything is the same with the beard.
Yeah, well, I think that's just, age and stress, which we both have.
Yes, it's true.
No, but we got some outside time. Maybe it grew in just right. I threw wood around.
Oh,
that was great.
Showing those guns. All right, let's talk Star Trek.
Fun.
Let's do this.
All right. So today we're going to talk about Shakaar, but of course we have to talk about family business. First, it is the introduction of Moogie. Obviously, Jen was a fan. I can already guess what her rating of self-sealing stem bolts is going to be, but before I give hers, I got to give yours. And so, interestingly, more divergent ratings, as always. Joshua Cronin loved it with a 90, Jason Moe with an 80, YouTube viewer with an 83 also made a very good point that I should have remembered, but I didn't Mike, you know how the Ferengi got warp drive? We're like, how could they possibly have accomplished warp drive being as backwards as they are? What do you think they did? They bought it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Of course, they bought all of their tech, which, like, duh, of course. Delusions at Noon comes with a 65. Not loving the how difficult it is to depict the horrors of Ferengi society as a comedy. I think it's a very good point. JD comes with a 78, Harry Pothead with an 85, Worf's Boat Ships, and Kevin Miles with an 88. Pretty good. And Sans Didi comes in with the super tip, as always, just in the nick of time. We almost recorded this the day after we recorded last episode. We're like, no, we just... And did we say, no, let's do it in 2 weeks? No. Every 2 days, we're like, all right, let's do it. And then one of us, mainly Mark, would cancel it right at the last second. So,
well, I kept thinking about what the setup was going to be and how to like make sure that there was enough internet and where to sit and could it be quiet. And I was like, this is stressful. Let's just do it when we get home.
Absolutely. And I think like to be distracted while you're on vacation with your family, they already put up with me having like a fantasy draft.
Oh, you already had your draft?
I had one, well, not our draft.
And I was like, oh, did I auto draft? Was it any good? No.
Oh, Mike, you're not there because you're good.
You just happened to... Well, I don't even give you the money. You still have to beg me for the money.
Always.
You have to
You're the
remind me.
worst. You are the worst one. You are the one I communicate with more than anybody else in the entire league. And you're the one I have to track down the hardest. Anyway, so Sans Deity says...
Do we have a date
Hey, guys. What's that?
Forget it. I'll look on the email.
Sans Deity says, hey, guys. Hope I made it in time to post it for the episode. You sure did, thanks to our, putting it off so many times. Hopefully you enjoyed your well-deserved vacations. We did. This is another episode I normally pass over on a rewatch that I've learned that I like better than I remember. I think that might be the best part about doing this show is I know that I feel, and many people have expressed, who watch the show, that we're enjoying the episodes we didn't think we would like more than we ever did because of digging in like this. I think that a large part of that is that Explorers was the last episode. This plot dovetails nicely with last week's episodes since they both deal with parent-child relationships, this time between a mother and son, albeit with a much different societal context than we're used to. Women treated like second-class citizens and not given the same opportunities as men, obviously the work of a very active science fiction imagination. I know, it's hard to conceive that they might be marginalized. No, but seriously, I liked how Deep Space Nine had the courage to take on gender inequality. I also enjoyed seeing Rom having a larger role and having his character and personality cemented a bit more. It's true, he did have a bit of a migratory personality for the first 2 seasons. The childlike love he has for Moogie has always endeared me to Rom, and I think this episode also does well in showing more of Quark's softer side. And once again, Jeffrey Combs is a force. I have never not been entertained by his performances. He just nails Brunt as this slimy, underhanded Ferengi, and then he nails his later performance as well. No spoilers. We have not met my favorite Jeffrey Combs character yet, by a mile. I really like the Ferengi, that was me saying that. I really like the Ferengi episodes and don't understand the hate, to be honest. There's maybe a clunker or two, but Deep Space Nine does a great job with them, and many of the funniest moments involve them. 78 self-sealing stem bolts on this one. Please pet Charlie for me, Keith. I certainly did. I did not take Charlie on the 7-hour drive up to Vermont, so Jillian took care of him, it was hard for us both. I felt so bad leaving my buddy, but they ended up being, getting to spend more time with Jillian, so that was fun.
They don't care, Keith. You know what? When you come home, the cats are like, they say hey for about 7 minutes, and then they're like, all right.
He's like, yeah, again with the treats, buddy. Let's go. And for seasons 4 incoming soon, I am almost done with my secret fan project. I hope you guys and the K&Mers will enjoy, so stay tuned. I know what that is. I don't know if Mike does. It's going to be amazing, and we're probably gonna watch it together here on the show.
All right, Sounds. I hope you're ready hope you're ready for that said video to get tens of views.
I mean, If you're lucky. And that's only because we watched it 10 times.
Keith's mom is gonna love it.
She's probably, yes, she might. All right, so lastly, we have to hear from the Chancellor. How did the Chancellor feel about family business?
Chancellor was moogie all the time. She had some points. I'm going to be honest, when she was talking to me about it over coffee, I was kind of asleep. But it had something to do with women's rights.
Marriage.
Oh, she loved the cross cut between. There's a scene where, like, I think something's happening with Moogie, and then there's a direct cut right to when Ben is meeting his new potential love interest.
Cassidy Yates.
And Cassidy is doing all kinds of
branding
stuff.
Cassidy Yates.
Branding expert Cassidy, marketing guru. And she
Influencer.
is a bad bee in charge, right? So there's a direct cut between Moogie and then Cassidy Yates.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, showing the kind of juxtaposition between two
As a
societies.
businesswoman, they're both businesswomen, and one of them is
has to be undercover.
influencing
and
successful. That's a really good point. I can't believe we missed that.
92 self-sealing stent bolts from CEO Jen.
Good job, Chancellor Jen. Thank you for that.
She, in that one succinct point, did a better episode than we did in the 2-hour bloviation.
No surprise. No surprise. All right. Well, let's begin our 2-hour bloviation that Jen will do better in a sentence about Season 3, Episode 24, Shakaar, which aired on May 22nd, 1995. I was a fresh-faced 15-year-old at this point.
Who was not doing it.
I was profoundly not doing it. But if I wanted to know how to do it, Montel Jordan would tell me how one does it, Mike.
This is how we do it. First find a girl, or I guess your hand.
I'm sorry.
So Sans, clip here for when you do Season 3. That's gonna be great. Right here. Here's your time code.
Brought shame to my family.
You have 100% brought shame to your family, and I laid out so it could be easier to cut out.
Oh man, I hope he's not doing a clip show, because unlike a network TV clip show where all the clips are funny and somewhat in context, these will not be either.
I think that'll be the point. The top movie was Die Hard with a Vengeance. Die Hard 3, the one that happens in our fair city of New York. Which, interestingly, a piece of trivial trivia about Die Hard, that was not written to be a Die Hard movie.
Oh, really?
No, that was a different movie they adapted into a Die Hard movie. So there you go. And there's another movie that was a Die Hard movie that they turned into something else. Whatever. An enjoyable franchise, especially at the beginning. I like the second one best, strangely. The airport one. I really enjoyed that. I like the second one often. All right, what was on television that night, Mike?
Keith, just a couple of things to note. Number one, ABC at 8 o'clock was doing a Laverne and Shirley reunion special, which I absolutely have to go to YouTube and check out, because I loved Laverne and Shirley, and I don't quite remember the reunion special, but that was airing tonight. Also airing tonight, which was pretty cool, was Murphy Brown's retrospective part 1 of 2. Instead of doing, this was on CBS, instead of doing a clip show, I guess they were off here that night, CBS Leslie Stahl did a whole special talking to Candice Bergen about how it was this groundbreaking show, and this was in season 5 of 10 seasons that Murphy Brown would run, or 7, I think, might have been season 7.
Well, they became such a cultural touchstone because Dan Quayle, using his always excellent political instincts, took a swipe at Murphy Brown and made it a giant hit. So thanks for that.
And also airing that night was, Keith, the series finale of Blossom, Season 5, Episode 22, Goodbye.
Oh, I never watched Blossom, but, it's always that series finales always get me no matter what, because I know what it feels like to, close a show.
I remember,
and even if you hated it, it's still, you still have all the feels.
I loved Blossom, and by the way, shout out to Mayim Bialik for standing tall and taking time off Jeopardy to stand in solidarity with the strike going on.
100%.
I don't fault Ken Jennings for still doing Jeopardy, because Jeopardy, well, everybody loves Jeopardy, and it's. But I think it all worked. I think it is how it shall be. Anyway, yeah, I think that the dad was selling the house on that episode, and Blossom didn't want to move and didn't want to leave, so she was trying to like basically Beetlejuice all of the people coming in to look at the house. But eventually,
It's a good finale.
turns out they do sell the house, and she has to say goodbye.
Wow.
And Joey Lawrence, with one tear, goes,
Whoa. I think that's a pretty good concept for a finale of that type. Good idea. All right. Well, speaking of finales, this was the season finale of Voyager this week. The episode Learning Curve. Very, very odd. What happened with season 1 of Voyager. It's a little bit like The Practice, Mike.
they're like cast flipping?
No, if you remember, The Practice only aired 6 episodes in season 1, but they filmed another 8 episodes, which they rolled into season 2. And Voyager kind of did the same thing. They filmed an additional 4 episodes for season 1 and decided to sort of shut it down and do those episodes in season 2. I don't really know why. I thought that was a very odd choice, especially considering Learning Curve is not a season finale episode. I mean, it wasn't intended to be. But that was the season 1 finale. I don't. It's an odd.
Did they just
feeling.
hold them in the can, or did they improve the graphics, or maybe there's technology increase?
No, I think they just held them in the can. So I'd be curious what the thought process was behind that. But so there it is. So Voyager is now done for the summer, even though Deep Space Nine continues on. You want to know what else continues on? Getting closer to us on the weekly world news headline. Mike, look out! The moon is drifting towards the Earth.
I knew it.
Yeah. It's mankind is in peril.
Keith, it literally is. Starfield, the biggest game release of the year, is next week.
Oh boy. Well, there you go.
Keith, did I reach out to Bethesda's marketing team as K&M Geekly saying, "Hey, I have a channel. Want to send me a review code?" I sure did.
How'd that go?
No reply.
I mean, I'm assuming they instantly sent us the whole thing, right?
I think they laughed and didn't even reply to my email. Is what I think happened.
Yeah, I think that counts as spam. Is what that is.
Yeah, I think you're right. Doomsday collision by the year 2000, NASA warns. Well, good news, fellow time travelers. We dodged that moon bullet.
I mean, that and maybe it bounced off of Y2K. It's possible that happened. All right. This episode, Shakaar, was directed by Jonathan West. This is the first of 4 Deep Space Nine episodes Jonathan will direct. He also directed Firstborn, the Next Generation episode, and new director, very familiar with the Star Trek property because he was the longtime cinematographer and DP on Next Gen and Deep Space Nine. So he knew where all the cookies were backstage. And this was written by Gordon Dawson, who last wrote Profit and Loss, the last Ferengi
I will say,
episode.
He does get a shout out because there is a distinct, noticeable, tangible difference in cinematography between those two properties, even though they're in the same universe. And I think that is to be noted because a lot of times that's not the case, especially on network television.
Yeah. Well,
because Deep Space Nine, I feel, and this could be because my memory of Next Gen is actually in rerun, basically. Next Gen feels much more shot on video. And Deep Space Nine feels much more cinematic.
I'll tell you why, because they were both filmed on film. It's the lighting. Next Gen's lighting is very bright. It's a wash, right? There are no shadows. It's a full wash. Everything is completely lit. Whereas Deep Space Nine is very much, it's not a wash. There's lots of shadows and darkness in the corners, and things are sort of pot lit as opposed to a wash. And I think that the full wash is very 80s, 90s television, whereas much higher contrast lighting is more cinematic. Mainly And interestingly, because of the technology at the time, because our TV sets sucked.
Yeah.
They were small and they had terrible contrast. And so if it were too dark, you couldn't see anything. So the TV was overlit because of how shitty televisions were. Today, that's no longer the case. So they can light stuff much more complexly.
Remember you used to be able to put your hand, you'd sit so close to the TV, you put your hand, and you could feel the static come off the glass. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
So different now. It's crazy how
Snap,
different
crackle,
the technology is.
Well, and the, not only is it better, but just how much energy those TVs were using. Like, holy moly.
We had the cabinet was 6 feet tall. Like, the cabinet was taller than me. We had a rear projection TV. That thing must have weighed 12,000 pounds. I don't even know whatever became of that television.
Crazy. It's crazy. And now, like, when I was in Vermont, I set up my second monitor for my laptop, which is powered by USB.
It's
from
crazy.
my laptop.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Anyway, nerd talk for another show. Let's do some trivial trivia.
Let's do it.
Now, Keith, waste your time with trivial trivia. Okay, so the exteriors in this episode were shot in Bronson Canyon, where many, many things are shot, but the weather was so cold that a number of the scheduled shots were never completed.
Like when they close up to his house, you can tell a shift.
Yeah, so we decide to film it in the studio. So sometimes like, let's go to the cave set instead. Indeed, so many shots were dropped that the crew ended up with some free time while they were in the canyon. So they went into the real caves at the canyon and shot the cave scenes scheduled for shooting in the studio.
Cool.
Which is really cool. And of course, like, not to be a Northeastern Yankee, but I imagine those California folks were too cold. It was 55 degrees.
Well, I thought it's interesting it was the weather because I thought the lighting was so harsh, that the direct sunlight was so harsh in those establishing shots, those wide shots.
It's so hot.
Yeah, I thought it, well, not even that it was hot. I just thought that what a challenge it must be to shoot in such direct light. It was so harsh.
I would totally imagine.
But then you have to recreate that, right? You have to recreate that. If that's your establishing shot and then you zoom in to his place, you've got to try to recreate that harsh lighting.
I mean, that's part of the difficulties of shooting. But it's interesting that it was cold, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're going to have episodes coming up where we're going to shoot on location where it was so crazy hot, they almost all died. So, interestingly, the silver desk prop on Guy Winn's desk is the same prop used on Dr. Evil's conference table in Austin Powers. So that whoever designed that didn't know that this was the super villain desk set that
cool.
got used.
That's cool.
And lastly, Duncan Rager, Shakaar, also played Ronin in the Next Generation episode Sub Rosa. We'll talk more about that later, but if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. All right, Mike, it is time to thank some important people who have also patiently waited for our nonsense while we were on vacation. Mike, why don't you tell us who they are and what we've promised and not delivered them?
Keith, we'd like to thank folks who keep the channel running even when we're on vacation for the first time in so many years. And first, let me just sing their praises by name. Bryant, Kimball, Beer Sock, Casey Clark, Jason Moe, Josh.
Nope. You said sing.
Brian Kimball, Beer Sock, with Casey Clark and Jason Moe. Don't forget Joshua Cronin. Now Andrew Hayes, Jorge Novella, and the Mysterious and the Mysterious Household Wars. Big old boot sheaves. Charles Babbage and Richard Coleman. They're smoking a spliff with Harry Pothead. With CRM Productions and Nikolai Ivanovich Lobachevsky. Delusions at News, Steve Brown, YouTube Viewer. JD Makes Colin Day, Chris Mitchell, CRM Pat, Joshua send us stuff in the mail. We're always happy that we don't send stuff back. Like the posters that we've promised. We're working on it. We're getting on it. We're getting all of our stuff together.
We're terrible.
I've wasted enough of your time. We are eternally grateful for these folks for helping us out, producing the shows, and just wishing us good wishes and good vibes and just being...
And holy crap, did we get something cool from Anne this week. I have to talk more about that later.
The best, just the best people. You can be one of the best people too. Patreon.com/K&M. From the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Yeah, lots of fun stuff up there. And lots of fun stuff to come. I'm pretty excited about Anne's project. We have to talk to
really cool.
talk to her about that. Anyway, so let's talk about our guest stars here for Shakaar. The aforementioned Duncan Rager as Shakaar Aiden, Diane Salinger as Lupaza, William Lucking as Pharrell, Sherman Howard as Syvar, John Doman as Lenaris Holum, and of course, coming back to rescue the episode so many times over, Louise Fletcher as Kai Winn. I think it's time to go to our screening room. What do you say?
Take it away, me.
Okay, so we begin in our teaser with Cisco and O'Brien playing darts. And O'Brien is in the zone, so he is kicking Cisco's butt. Unfortunately, he gets called away and bumps into Bashir, warning him about O'Brien's zone. Meanwhile, that's what I wrote. Meanwhile, Kira is paying for Barat,
She went in those hollow suites and paid the big bucks to get that Barile
here's the thing.
retro
As
program.
always, I write really fast, but I have not. I did this 2 weeks ago. So I know, because there's so many typos, but I know what I meant, right? After I just wrote it. It's been 2 weeks now. So I could get some. It's going to be exciting. So Kira is praying for Barile.
What an elaborate, cool little, Olympic chalice thing.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, it's really beautifully done. And it's all handmade. I'm assuming it's wood, which is exciting considering all the fire. But really cool stuff. So Cisco has bad news. The first minister of the Bajoran government has died. And interestingly, we have to point this out, luckily of heart failure, not assassination. And look out, they have already appointed a new temporary head of government. Wait for the dun-dun-duns, Kai Winn. So that's a problem immediately. Good teaser. Because I'm immediately feeling peril here.
Yeah, when we combine the Pope and the head of the country, it always goes well.
Oh yeah, theocracies work really well. So in Act 1, Odo and Kira are having a security meeting, but Kira is distracted by the Sith Lord taking over the government. Apparently, nobody is going to oppose her in the upcoming elections. And Kira knows she has to be stopped for a reason she doesn't know quite, but she feels like if she takes power, she won't give it back. I think it is time for all of us to do our best Wallace Shawn inconceivable!
Or
Because
just
that would never happen, right? So the Bajorans apparently like her now because she made peace with the Cardassians. Because she took all of the credit for what Barile did, being the very effective monster that she is. And Odo has a great line and says, one of the prices of giving people the freedom of choice is that sometimes they make the wrong choice. Inconceivable! Yeah.
Also, what makes Kai Winn so great as a baddie is that, and a lot of villains that Keith might be subtly hinting at, so great in their villainy is that, taken purely at face value, some of the quote-unquote wins are wins, right? Are things that happened, are factual outcomes, and if taken completely at face value, you can't deny them. And it's a lot of the, in this case at least, a lot of the questionable tactics, motivations are things we know, but the populace does not. It gets hairier when the populace finds out, which is what the plot of this episode will bring us down to.
Right. Well, and Kai Winn works in the shadows, and she works with endless deniability. She covers her butt better than maybe other people we might be referencing who just crime out loud.
Yeah, difference being in those, and this is important actually, I think, because it shows a potential. Well, I guess that is up for debate, right? If the end of this episode, a lot of the suppositions they make as to why the jig is up, let's say, is that the populace, if they knew, Keith, they would never stand for it. And that either can be viewed with the lens of history here as just Star Trek being idealistic, or potentially a naivete, because in
the 90s, we didn't stand for it. Now we love standing for it, but back in the 90s, there actually were consequences for criming. Huh. All right. So anyway, I can moving forward, I can hear they have a new composer for this episode, Paul Bajor. Yeah, sure, why not? Who I definitely noticed the difference in tone from what we normally hear. It's subtle, but I definitely heard it. So Kira returns to praying when Kai Winn arrives on the station. She's here to see Kira. And she doesn't understand, talking about just the wonderful empathy that she's always putting out. She doesn't understand why Kira's still mourning. It's been 3 months since your boy toy died.
What an awesome, so good. Because if you recall, at least for me, the last time we saw her, even though all the crap went down with Belial, I was still it felt as if you could make the argument that she was operating in the best interest of Bajor, right?
Right.
And trying to do the right thing. So maybe she was turning to the leaf, but she starts this scene with, "Oh, are you still cry baby crying over your dead boyfriend, crying baby cry?"
Who I killed?
Mm-hmm. And I will never forget, even though we only saw her for a brief moment of time, Kai Chewbacca. Now that is a custom figure I want to see.
Kai Chewbacca.
Who's on it?
It's gotta have the button where it makes the
with a Kira figure crying next to it as it dies.
Prophets.
Anywho, what was her name? Kai Ubaka?
I think it's better to leave it Chewbacca.
Okay, Kai Chewbacca was all empathy. Kai Chewbacca might be my finest work, actually.
I think you've done it before. That's the best part. This is a reduce, reuse, recycle joke, but we don't remember.
Kai Chewbacca was all about empathy, and here Kai Winn is just showing that she is not.
Yes. So Kira confronts her for taking the credit for Belial's work, and she disingenuously says, "Belial never wanted fame or glory. I'm surprised you didn't know that." Oh, God, she is the worst.
And then goes ahead and after that dig, she uses that dig to propel herself into an ask.
She's so good. I mean, she's profoundly evil, but both the writing and the performance of this character as the most detestable person out there. It's I think that I'm not the only one who's ever done this, but in the Harry Potter world, I think Dolores Umbridge borrows heavily from Kai Winn here. There are plenty of people like that, but it wouldn't surprise me that there wasn't some influence there. Kira's like, "What do you want?"
But they're never twirling their mustache, you know what I mean? That's the thing that's so infuriating. If you just one extra step into well, she won't give you that.
Right. She's so good at saying "fuck you" with a smile. Mm-hmm. Which is that is the subtext behind everything. Is I'm saying things with deniability.
Spoiler, and maybe you can help me with this later, and also it's been a little while since I watched it as well. But my sort of lasting feeling of a little bit of disappointment in the episode here is I feel like they actually give me too much of that towards the end. She is her evil is a little unhinged towards the end of it. Like her motivations don't seem to be too calculated. You know what I mean? It seems to be drunk with power more than a calculated tactic, because she's so good at plotting, you know.
To be fair, happens to all people who eventually. I mean, look at Putin. He used to be evil but sane. Now he's evil and crazy.
Yeah, that's a good point. It could be a trajectory of bad guy.
But it happened really fast for Winn.
Yeah.
It took her like 2 weeks, and she's like, "I'm drunk with power."
Yeah. To be fair, though, she wasn't military leader before. I mean, once you hand a military over to somebody, things can get.
That's
hairy,
true.
So.
Once you get the nukes, but it is interesting to dovetail this with the last time we saw her, because she was a little bit vulnerable last time. She was a little bit unhinged in the sense that she genuinely seemed a little lost and seemed vulnerable that way. And so I think you can chalk that up either to inconsistent writing, but I think were I to sort of try to fix it, it would be, I think, how vulnerable she felt going through that process scared her enough to push her a little bit further over the edge. She's like, I don't ever want to feel that way again. I don't ever want to feel vulnerable. I don't want to ever feel lost. So I'm going to clamp down on power. I'm going to push a little bit harder, which is another thing that people do. You know, if you get scared, you get unstable, you either right the ship or you double down. And I think she clearly doubled down.
Cool.
Maybe. So Winn says, I'll tell you what I want. We talk about the Rakantha province, which is a farming area which had been poisoned by the Cardassians. They actually poisoned the soil. Oof. And they've just found a way to fix it using reclamators. And she wants to get it going to start interstellar commerce and help Bajor get into the Federation. The catch is, the people currently using the reclamators don't want to give them up. And the dudes who's not giving it up is Shakaar, the leader of the resistance cell that Kira was in during the occupation. So we've heard of the Shakaar. Shakaar! That's if you're playing street hockey, that's what you call when you gotta clear for a Shakaar. And we've heard the name Shakaar a bunch of times now. We've heard Shakaar Resistance Force. We've never met the dude. So Winn wants Kira to get him to change his mind, despite the fact that he saved her life a bunch of times, or maybe because of that. And she says, we're on the verge of a new era, but our future depends on each of us working for the common good of Bajor. And she makes a pretty good point. But Kira says he must have a reason why he's not giving them up. So she agrees to go talk to him. And Winn keeps calling her child because she's the worst.
That's what I said in my watch along. I was like, go ahead, call me child one more time.
Oh my God. Like, you just want, she's one of the most punchable villains out there.
Look at that. That's just, I hate you, but I love you.
Louise Fletcher, absolute national treasure.
And let me tell you, I'm sure that this, as somebody who never gets to be one, I will give me bad guy every day, all the time. Nobody wants to play the good guy. You think you do growing up as an actor, like, oh, I want to be like the main guy. No, you don't. You want to be the bad guy.
Well, speaking as a guy who frequently plays the bad guy, yeah, it's good.
I want to be bad guy.
I played Jafar in an unlicensed Aladdin production in theater camp. And what I mean unlicensed, I don't mean the knockoff version. I mean, they literally just copy and paste. We sang A Whole New World and such. But it was before the internet, so Disney didn't find out. Crazy. Anyway, that's an offensive situation all around.
Can't wait to watch the YouTube boot of that, the slime tutorial.
Thank God it does not exist on the YouTubes, because that would be the end of me. So I was 15. I didn't know any better. So in Act 2, Kira arrives at Shakaar's settlement. They actually went on location for this, to Bronson Canyon, where many things have been filmed, as I mentioned. She runs her hand
I
through
loved
the
the scene
dirt.
so much I just took 1,000 screenshots.
You took 10 trillion screenshots.
Or I just forgot to advance them as we were talking. One of the two. Hold on a moment. There we go.
It's possible. There it is. We're on location. Looks great. She runs her hand through the dirt. It's clearly not fixed yet. And she runs into Shakaar.
That's such a TV moment. We just talked all about how the ground is poisoned, but it wasn't in there. The director was like, let's get some B-roll of you playing with the soil so we have it, and then they were like, put it in.
Well, but it's actually new information. We knew that it was poisoned, but then they had the reclamators.
Yes.
So it actually is important.
We still need time, is what we're saying.
We need to know that the reclamators haven't worked yet.
Takes
for
time.
Shakaar.
Yeah, they're not magic.
So they're happy to see each other, and they go inside the cabin, and the drop in the background behind them looks like a community theater production of Paint Your Wagon. Deep cut. So they talk about their old friends, who are also now farmers.
But
Yes,
to
Mike?
my point, notice the direct harsh light on the backdrop. They had to try
Yeah.
to mimic what they had shot externally. Now they've got to do it on the
Yeah.
lot. And I have to say, with the contrast and the shadows inside, it's a pretty good job.
The color correction. They did a good job, and it's hard to do that, have something so bright in your background and yet still be clear in the foreground. Well, the guy who directed this was the DP, so if anybody's going to know how to do it, it's going to be him. So Shakaar knows why she's here and asks for time to think about it. So we head back to the station because, we need a B plot, and O'Brien
Do we?
beats... this whole B plot was filler.
This I'm gonna go on record saying this might be, in my experience thus far, the worst B plot we've had.
It's kind of a colossal waste of time. And I get it. Like, we all get on streaks, what'd you call it? Flow state. I'm with you, and it's great. I don't know if we need to spend that much time on it on television, because if you're gonna spend 10 minutes of TV Deep Space Nine time, there's much better work to be done.
It's just I'm gonna summarize my problems with it. You're waiting the whole time for what's the what, right? And the what there is no what.
Why are we doing
there's
this?
No,
there's
there
no
there.
what.
Like, I thought they were faking the injury to prove to Quark that gambling is bad for a second. I was like, well, that's a waste of time, so they don't do that. I thought that. Can you really destroy your shoulder structurally from what took place there?
Well, he has a history of separating a shoulder dating back to Next Gen.
Okay, it's
this is actually
I've wasted
a
too
known...
much time on the summary. It's bad. It's just bad straight through.
Well, it's not bad. It's just pointless. Like, if you're going to tell a story about Quark's villainy exploiting the bet, we've already told that story.
Yeah. Well, it's not even that.
Because we did the same thing with the racquetball, right? We told the story of, like, Quark betting on O'Brien and Bashir playing, right? There's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Anyway, somebody else justify it for us. I mean, it's not that it wasn't pleasant, like Colin Media, it's fun, like, whatever, but, like, there's so much more story we can tell.
No
do some character development. Do some something.
There. Zero there.
No, there. Anyway, so he beats Dax and Quark. Dax and Quark is taking bets on O'Brien's streak. He's now up to 47 straight wins. He wants to pack it up for the day, but Quark wants him to keep going because he's making money. And he's able to massage O'Brien's ego enough to keep him going tomorrow. Sure. We head back to Shakaar's hut, and the two other friends from the Resistance have arrived, and they're drinking and reminiscing. Pharrell is missing an arm from the war that he lost in an interrogation center.
And he's
Yikes.
totally not just doing this under a shirt.
Quiet, you don't know. He chose not to have it replaced.
This was a cool monologue.
Yeah, because in the interrogation center, he prayed to be able to save his friends and offered his life. And he only lost an arm, though, and thought it would be ungrateful to get it fixed because he saved his friends.
We've totally seen that girl before, right? That lady before. Or she's just that eponymous.
Well, see, I think that's a good question. Hold on, let me look that up, and also point out there's a lot of repeated beats here with progress.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because we go down to the farmer on the moon and try to get him to, instead of move, give up his reclamators, and he's got a couple of other farmer buddies that come over and they eat horrible Bajoran food.
I thought it was an interesting beat here too, because it kept leading us to believe that Shakaar's the one who Kira owes her life to, but then this guy also apparently was one of the guys who saved the day a bunch, but I guess they just all were buddies, fighters together. Yeah,
they were all fighting together. No, this is her first time on the show.
Oh, interesting. She's just she's in Pee-wee, right?
She looks very Star Trek. She's a what?
She was in Pee-wee, right?
Oh.
She totally has a Pee-wee credit.
Yes, you're 100% right. And she plays Penguin's mother in Batman Returns.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
How about that? She was in Ghost World. Lots of good stuff. Yeah, so we'll talk more about the similarities between this and Progress as we go. I scrolled the wrong place.
He's ungrateful, and Shakar's like, they're like, Shakaar, you got to give the reclamators back, and he's like, I told her I'd think about it, and they're like, no, you can't do it.
Yes, they complain about their ruined soil. Apparently, they haven't had a chance to fix theirs with the reclamators yet. Later that night, Kira and Shakaar talk privately. She tries to get him to do what's best for Bajor, but he says, I waited 3 years and I just got them, and they were promised to us for a whole year. Kira says, we need this so we can change how the galaxy sees us, but Shakaar doesn't care. Kira wants to arrange a meeting between him and Winn, which he agrees to.
Okay, I need some clarification here.
All right.
How big are these reclamators?
I don't know.
Is it because Winn sets it up as if they're big enough to, like, it seems to me like this other farm that they want to fix for all this export material is epic, right? It's like a
it's like a whole state. It's a whole
an
province.
Industrial farming apparatus.
Right.
Whereas this is like this little farm. So I can't. My brain is having a hard time grokking the congruity between the two. Like, are these two little reclamators even going to make a dent on that farm planet?
My understanding is that it's a whole bunch of reclamators, and he's just the leader. And so I think it's like 15.
Oh.
So it's like 15 different farms all working like this.
So he does. Yes. Okay. So it is kind of a big operation happening here. It's not just
it's a big. I get the sense that he's like speaking for the entire province that he's in, but it definitely does seem like it doesn't make a great deal of sense if you dig too far into it. We're also like, can't we make more reclamators? Like, we have replicators. Like, we have. I'm sure Starfleet will help. Like,
because her pitch back to Winn is like, if he gets rid of these reclamators they waited for 3 years for, are they all just going to starve to death down here? Is that the?
I don't think so. I think it's just they can't do anything. It definitely, like, don't scratch the surface too hard on the reclamator of it all, because it doesn't really make a great.
So his point is just basically like, yo, I went through all of the bureaucratic red tape.
Right, I waited 3 years for this,
and now you want it back.
And you're going to steal it before I get a chance to use it. And you promised this, and then you're going to take it back. So, interesting. So he says, before he agrees to meet with Winn, he says, "Hey, I missed her. It's been a dry spell since I banged Dr. Crusher and her grandmother as a ghost."
Good context.
So there you go. If you haven't seen Sub Rosa, so he's a ghost who lives in a lamp, who used to bang Dr. Crusher's grandma, and then bangs Dr. Crusher. And that's an episode of The Next Generation.
So he's a djinn, basically?
Kind of. Well, he's getting djinn to some Crushers, I'll tell you that.
So he's like a genie?
Kind of. Yeah, he was kind of a Kindle
but
ghost.
Now he's just like normal?
No, it's a different character, dum-dum.
Oh, okay.
What if Shakaar were Crusher's ghost? That's what happened after Sub Rosa. He went to Bajor and led a resistance as opposed to banging Crushers.
It makes sense now. Well, speaking of banging, they have some long looks here.
They got like I said, it's been a dry spell since season 7.
I guess things got cold and lonely on the war front, and they had to use body heat. You know,
he wants to reclamate some other territory. So in Act 3, Kira meets with Winn back at the Capitol. Winn asks, "What's up?" And Kira says, "It's a no, but I've set up a meeting." Winn calls Shakaar prideful and arrogant, and there's no reasoning with him. Kira defends him, and the Kai says, "I'll meet with him. You can leave."
I thought she was gonna send in the. Well, she does kind of. I was like, oh, they're just gonna like assassinate the guy. I thought that's where we were headed.
Well, that's kind of exactly what happened. So, Kira goes back to tell Shakaar when security officers come in and arrest him. Winn lied. See, I told you. Shakaar knocks out the first guy, and Kira knocks out the second guy. And Shakaar says, "This isn't your fight. Go home." And Kira says, "Nope. If Winn wants a fight, I'll give her one."
Keith, I was thinking during this, it's like, I like the beat for Kira because no matter how far she gets into her kind of new life, there's that pull of the old days of what she is at her core with these guys. It's like me and you. Like, if we now in our present state, if we were out on the playground, right, and like some bullies came up and they were like pushing us around, we'd be like, "Keith, I know we're mature now, but it's time to podcast." And we would just, we'd do what we do. You know what I mean? We'd throw on the cans and we'd podcast the hell out of those guys.
All right. I'm just really thinking through the playground. And I think that might explain why we were bullied. Because, like, you want to take the slide? No, man, I've got an episode to do. Got a little microphone, which at this point is just like a stick and a rock.
It did happen to us one time, friends of the channel. We were playing football in Brooklyn, just two guys throwing the ball to each other. Yeah, and this group of other guys was like, "Hey, you want to play football with us?" And they were like, "Oh, we play tackle." And Keith and I were just too afraid to say no, even though we desperately wanted to say no.
I was 100% in. You were not so much. And
no, because they were huge.
And you were right, because I have never seen a man get just rocked. I saw Mike's soul get knocked out of him.
In my life, I have never been hit. I've never been hit that hard and will never be hit that hard again. But in my brain, I knew for Keith and I's sake, I had to stay on my feet, because if I had gone down, they would have pushed us around all day.
You handled it like a champ. You were a little bit like the nut. It doesn't hurt.
I had to throw my underwear away, for sure. 100%. Okay.
Good times. Good times.
They knocked the literal Shakaar out of him.
It is possible to knock the Shakaar out of people. All right. So that was the shortest act in Star Trek history. So we go to Act 4. In a bunch of caves, Shakaar, Kira, and their friends all grab weapons.
So this is the actual caves now?
I don't think so. I don't know if they would light it.
Didn't they say
they did that?
There?
But that, they did say they did that, but that looks like the cave set. Unclear. It'd be cool if it were, though. But I would wonder about the feasibility of doing all the tech in a real cave and lighting it, and whether they'd be allowed to set up lights and cabling and all that kind of stuff in an actual cave. I don't know. Also, safety, OSHA, environmental, I don't know. I don't buy it. Anyway, the authorities have arrested other former members of the resistance in the area. But they have a plan. They're going to make the police chase them through the mountains. Back on the station, O'Brien is beating a Vulcan and is all cocky. And of course, and again, we're learning this on Strange New World. Vulcans are dicks.
Yeah, just total a-holes.
Totally. But he reaches for some beer and dislocates his shoulder with a rotator cuff tear. And the Vulcan says, "Hey, if you leave, you lose." And O'Brien keeps trying to play, but he needs surgery. Poor Quark, the Vulcan wins. So this rotator cuff thing, well established. It's not as crazy as it seems if you hadn't seen Crusher put his shoulder back in like 6 times on Next Gen.
Okay.
And we've mentioned it on the show before, because he can't get through the kayaking thing because it keeps dislocating his shoulder.
Right.
On Bajor, Cisco has arrived in Winn's office. She wants his help. Apparently, they've been searching for Shakaar and Kira for 2 weeks, but haven't found them at all.
Seems to me like Kira's been in contact with Ben because he is not sweating it.
No, clearly. He doesn't seem to be sweating a lot in this episode, including his XO just abandoning her post for weeks on end.
Being a fugitive?
Like, kind of being a fugitive, and I mean, I get it, like, the Federation isn't there to interfere with local Bajoran politics, but, like, she kind of works for him. She's like, peace out, I'm gonna go and run and shoot the Bajorans for a while. Anyway.
I actually think this scene is pretty important into establishing where she is in her villainy, but let's get through your summary first.
Winn says the resistance is spreading, and she's had to declare martial law and suspend local governments. That's an escalation. You know, using the Insurrection Act and all. You know, like, if they protest, we'll just send in the military and kill them all if they don't like what we're doing. So Cisco can't quite hide his pleasure at her failure. He advises that she pull the troops out of the province. And she says, I'll do it if the Federation comes in and takes their place. And they bring her Shakaar. Cisco says, nope.
Yeah, no.
Federation law prevents me from interfering in Bajoran issues. And she says, well, we'll withdraw our application to join the Federation. And Cisco says, that's an overreaction. Everything you're doing is an overreaction. You're risking a civil war over soil reclamators. And she says, this is a test by the prophets. They want to see if I'm worthy. I will stop Shakaar by any means necessary. So pretty much she's Dick Cheney. So let's talk about this scene, because, like,
so I see it in twofold. The thing I really like about it is that she definitely is, like, Ben is the emissary, right? He doesn't speak for Starfleet in any sort of way, or the Federation in any sort of way. So, you know, her threat to the Federation here, to him, is sort of misplaced, because he's not a decision maker when it comes, you know what I mean?
Well, he's not the decision maker, but his number one job when they first gave him the station is to help Bajor join the Federation.
Right. So clearly Ben doesn't like being blackmailed, but also his response and the coolness of his response does show that she doesn't have a ton of teeth in this, right? It's like, it's not, she feels as though she's got all this power, but she doesn't. Bajor loses too if they don't get into the Federation, right? Like, they. No,
I mean, she's a paper tiger there. It is interesting that Cisco doesn't get thrown by that, because that is his entire purpose in being there.
Yeah, and also you have to take stock of your enemy here, or your adversary, because this is where I at first was kind of not liking her journey here, but now it's making a little bit more sense. I think you're right in that, whereas she used to be very brilliant and calculated in specific targeted plots, here she's losing the thread a little bit. A little too much power, and things have gone her way a little bit. I think getting credit for the delegation acts with Bareil have given her this false sense of, yes, that fear of, I don't want to be put into that situation anymore, but I have the power that I can delegate these things and get the credit for it. So, hey, this is easy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And also a little mix here of this sort of, I hate to use this term, but a little bit of religious zealotry.
Sure.
You know, now that it's getting a little out of pocket, he points out the Civil War and the escalation, and he's right, and I think she might see it as right. She can pivot to, oh no, I'm not escalating. The prophets have made me do this. They're testing me. I have to go this far.
Right.
So she's justifying it with religion. So you're getting a little mix of cult leader, dictator. That's a bad combo.
Yeah. Yeah, well, she is sort of spiraling out, and it is interesting how sloppy she is, because she has been so careful and so well plotted before. I mean, like, her assassination attempt of Bareil in the first season, like, there's a lot going on with her sort of villainy, But she's usually much better at controlling the narrative. And what she loses in this episode, what the leverage on her is, she's lost the narrative with the people. And so she, like, her power comes from people, the general populace being behind her. And she, in this Shakaar situation, has not handled that part of it well. Like, Winn operating effectively would find a way to demonize Shakaar in the media, in the populace, and turn them on her side. Whereas she's not really doing that. She's just doing the military side and thus losing the people.
Well, and also, as they've shown really well on Deep Space Nine, is that the occupation and the search for that freedom / hatred of the Cardassians is had a great unifying effect on the Bajorans. And so the very first act of your Holy Roman Empire-ness is to turn the villainy towards the Bajorans on themselves.
The Bajoran heroes who fought against.
That's not going to go well.
It's like if right after 9/11 they went after SEAL Team 6.
Yeah, right.
Right, and it's like, wait, who are the bad guys here? It's confusing. You've lost the narrative.
It's almost like imagine if the figurehead hero of 9/11 eventually became a Looney Tunes villain character, like
just an absolute shit show of
just like leaking from the head villain,
like barely even still like fair to consider it a human. It's like an alien wearing a skin suit.
I can't wait for that biopic. Oh my god, that fall.
Wow! That'd be depressing. Anyway, like you said, that could never happen. Totally inconceivable. But I
actually pretty good that he could play him. Wallace Shawn as Looney Tune. As Giuliani.
Wallace Shawn as Rudy.
Holy crap. I've stumbled upon two. We've got Kaiju Baka and Wallace Giuliani.
Wallace Shawn's one man play as Rudy Giuliani. They've got to put the tubes up to leak the air.
100%.
Oh my god! Did I ever tell you I peed next to Rudy Giuliani once?
Oh, interesting.
In Astoria, strangely.
I peed next to Kevin Bacon. I'm everyone's sixth degree of Kevin Bacon.
Oh, there it is.
At the United Kaufman movie theater.
Oh well, there you go. That's. I mean, like I think the new family game is who's the most famous person you've urinated next to?
I call it what's shaking, Kevin Bacon.
Anthony Rapp once, the first time I met him.
Oh, hey.
Star Trek. All right. Anyway, where the hell am I?
No idea. That was one of the biggest derails of all time.
Oh, yikes.
Ben's like, no.
Anyway, so on the surface, Kira and the Resistance run down the side of some cliffs. They're being chased by Bajoran militia.
This is my favorite scene because it's like, everybody wants to shoot on location, right? Oh, authenticity, location. But what you don't realize is that, and go back and watch this scene, this whole thing. There's no way to make human military war heroes run up and down these hills that are just
soft dirt,
too steep for them and too soft, and they just all look silly. They're falling all over the place, slipping, sliding. They look terrible.
And this is the take that got in.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's still some extras rolling down that hill today.
It's so funny. Kira, who's like a main character, Nana, she looks great in everything, is falling down the hill.
It's pretty funny. Yeah, that's what I wrote. Yes. It looks great being on location. Kira turns on a contraption that makes them seem like they're going in the opposite direction, and the extras all almost fall down the dirt.
It's just falling down.
Just like go rolling. Whee! For Bajor! So they're going to lead the militia into a canyon and trap them. So in Act 5, it works great. And the militia walks directly into the canyon, cornering themselves. Not great strategy by apparently the other leader, but at least they do address it. Kira recognizes the leader. He was also in the Resistance, and according to her memory, is good at what he does. Not so much here. So they prepare to kill them all, but Kira and Shakaar can't do it. So they decide to talk to him instead. They reminisce as old war heroes. And Shakaar says, I just want to take my people home. Somebody gets an itchy trigger finger, but they're able to calm it down. And they all know that we're on the brink of a civil war. So what should we do about it? Back in the capital, the leader of the militia comes in with Shakaar and Kira. So they've made a deal. They show up at Winn's office. And they announce that instead of being prisoners, Shakaar is going to run for first minister against Winn. And you're going to lose. Winn accuses them of a coup. Ironic. Winn having tried to do like 3 of them thus far. Kira says, you can run, but if you do, we're telling everyone what happened here, that you risked a civil war over farm equipment. If I were you, I'd start packing. I think I might have made a bit of an enemy. This whole thing felt rushed.
Yes.
Felt terribly
Well, because
rushed.
I actually think the beat they have in the canyon, where it's the 2 military guys being like, this is ridiculous that we're going at each other. Like, there's something bigger at play here. I like that idea. And I like that monologue. And I like I would have liked to see the plotting against Winn. I would have liked to have, it's just too easy when they go in there. The sort of resolution is a little too easy. And also, and maybe it's because regardless of this, she's still going to have her, like, you can't remove the popeship, right? Can you?
No, she'll still be Pope, but not be the president.
Because I was going to say, what's the calculus with, why not just show what she did anyway, right? You've got enough people. You've got Ben, you've got the military leaders, you've got Kira, you've got enough people to be like, yo, this is what the Kai has been doing.
But also, they treat it like what she did was so obviously villainous that everyone's going to turn on her. I don't know if like it can necessarily be spun so black and white.
Well, I think that at least there's an argument to be made that tactically, as a military leader, as a government leader, she's making very poor, rash decisions. I mean, you're right. I don't think it's as easy as the blackmail they proposed to her, but I think they're right in that it's probably easier to win an election.
Well, the thing they have on her, the thing that she really did wrong, is the thing that's obvious to everyone else. She established martial law.
Mm-hmm.
She overrode the small governments. Well, that's a pretty good argument, but everybody knows that. There's no threat to that.
Yeah.
That was done out in the open.
Also, it seems unnecessarily door closing to the writers, right? Because we're going to propose you, we're going to face off against you in this election. They can still end the episode satisfyingly, but then you still have options to write to if it tests well or however they do it. If and they're like, hey, let's explore that and see how the election went with the Kai and whatnot. We can go back to it, but we don't need to. I mean, we did do ourselves kind of I don't want to say disservice. Remember, we blew the universe open with with the major threat. So maybe the minutia of Bajoran politics and government isn't particularly like where our writing team wants to spend their time anymore. But it just felt, like you said, rushed, and like they put a pretty bow on it when it didn't necessarily need to have it.
And also, I think that it's just the story, like choosing, like understanding, like, okay, so Kai Winn tries to take over as president as well. Great. That sounds really interesting. I love that. Let's spend the whole time arguing about dirt. What are we doing? Like they put it like, I can't believe you do all this over a couple of reclamators. I can't believe that either. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this, I grew up basically on a farm. Like, I'm big into dirt and all that kind of stuff. But I think the story, the plot, what is turning the screws here, visually and conceptually, there's so much overlap between this and Progress that it's just hard for me to like get that excited about it. And so,
well, that's what I was trying to say before. It's like, because she didn't. It may look, if it's about her villainy, right? Which it seems to me like it is, because she didn't do any sort of coup behavior to get that post. She was selected, right? And then the power kind of gets to her head, if that's what we're assuming is kind of the gist here. She gets power hungry or power drunk. Isn't it better if she got power hungry, power drunk, and killed that guy? And it turns out 100%. She's just a murderous villain? Because that's...
And they did it backwards, too. And we're sort of doing the end of the show.
Yeah, I mean, O'Brien stuff happens.
Yeah. The zone is over. He heads off the holosuite. Now Bashir's in the zone. Later, Kira and Cisco discuss that Shakaar is probably going to win the election, and that Winn has already pledged her support. She completely backed down.
And then she blows out the
Cisco
candle
says,
so she can bang the other guy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Says, good to have you back, Major. So no consequences for going AWOL for 3 weeks. But I just want to finish my point before I forget it.
Well, let's just jump in. I'm just gonna jump into here.
Yeah, because I think storytelling-wise, just breaking the story of the Winn thing, of her like going power hungry and declaring martial law, it's backwards, right? Her declaring martial law and trying to arrest him should have happened after he announced that he's running. Not him running is the solution to it. She should have oh, I'm going to run against you. Now she's like, I got to get rid of this guy, and so I'm going to declare martial law. He's going to steal the election. Blah 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 blah. It's an insurrection. He's trying to do a coup. She tries to get the people behind him, and then it's a much bigger story and much more exciting than what it was. That all just got resolved. She backed down. Why would she back down?
Yeah, she's just a better villain than this, right?
Yes, 100%.
She's just a better villain than this, and I feel like the idea on paper, like you said, Kai Winn tries to Borgia it. You know what I mean? Cool. I get it. But they just sort of pansy out here and there, everywhere else, and they just, like you said, none of it has a lot of teeth, and it also... Her initial point kind of makes sense. Like, oh, hey, we're trying to build Bajor up. We want to become a major export power. This makes sense. We need the reclamator. Right. Sorry about it, but it is what it is. Kira, it's reasonable.
So his reaction doesn't make sense. It both doesn't quite make sense. It's also not that interesting.
Yeah, fair.
It's like, I don't care about the dirt. Like, yes, I get it as like a concept, but as an action episode, like, why are we doing this?
Or let's look at like you had mentioned before. We're kind of wrapping it all in together, wormholes and stuff too. Let's look at where there could be dramatic tension in this episode that we could exploit. Like you said, your XO going on the lam as a fugitive, fighting with the resistance fighters, and now you're being put on the spot to like, should you go after her as sort of the not just the emissary, but also as a Starfleet officer? Should you, like, he has actually some dramatic tension in what is presented to Ben, but we play it off very casually. It's not a big deal.
And you have an opportunity to do like a Mission Impossible rogue team or whatever it is, where like he's like this super soldier resistance guy being unfairly targeted by, like, there should be posters of him. He's a war criminal, blah, 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 and she goes after him, and he has to sort of prove his innocence while she's declaring martial law to take him down. That's exciting. That's a two-parter that I would watch the heck out of.
We also leave our villain, like you said, our best villain, well, one of our best villains, in a lesser position of power than we found her. Like, whereas it seems like the episode wants to escalate her villainy, it actually leaves her
leaves her tremendously weak.
Maybe more pissed off, maybe with a bone to pick now, a vendetta. But did she ever really need that? That's kind of her thing.
But she's less scary now because her strategy sucked, and she was very easily flipped and cowed here.
I also felt like Shakaar, our guy, sort of leads his buddies and all these resistance fighters into a really, he leads them into a suicide mission initially. He's like, we got to run on the land. We're going to run out of materials. We're going to run out of, but we got to go. Like, for what? What are we fighting for? I mean, I guess their land, they're putting a flag in the ground, but
it's sort of like unfair. You're going to take our toys away, so I'm going to start a war.
Right.
Like, that doesn't make it, like, his credibility is kind of shot with me because he's acting ridiculously. Like even like they're six. I mean, yes, it is unjust. It is unjust.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing that happens that's unjust, I don't start a resistance.
This might seem like a small fish fry, but if your B plot is going to be this bad, and I think it's pretty bad, this B plot, then your A plot better be just like a T-bone steak. You know what I mean? Like a filet mignon. And it is.
Yeah.
It ain't. There's a lot of holes in it. Now, positively, I will say.
Let's do best moments while we're doing it.
Yeah, we're going backwards here.
You know, we've been out for a while.
Yeah. Louise Fletcher, I mean, she doesn't know or care where the script stands. She's like, I'm going to read those lines. I'm going to give you the side eye takes, and you're going to hate me. And she does it. And you know what's even better is that you can tell Nana, how great is it to play opposite a bad guy like that?
Easy. It's so easy to play opposite.
She's seething in every scene with her. Seething. And I love this scene, and this is going to be a weird pick because of that. And this is because of Louise Fletcher. I like the first scene with Kira and Odo.
Me too. Oh, and Odo.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because it's after she talks with Ben, and she's like going to now friend Odo, right? Look, on the surface, there's nothing wrong with Kai, right? Asking you.
Right.
She's in a new job. She came to you. It's an honor, right? Because we know how devout Kira is. She's like, I have an ask. And it's a reasonable ask, I think. It's for the better of all Bajorans. And it's your old buddy, right? It would make sense to send in, like, Twigs to negotiate with you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It makes sense.
That's fair. Yeah.
Twigs is a friend. Keith was best man at his wedding. And so Kira has no reason really to be pissed, but she's got all these feels, and so her outburst with Odo being like, nobody gets it, I'm so mad, and no one else is mad with me. It's such a great scene because it's fueled by the performance of Fletcher, and Odo responds to it, I think, really cool. I just love that scene because it is so full of stuff. So that's my
Which is remarkable because that scene actually happens before Kira and Kai meeting face to face.
Correct.
Yeah.
You?
So my best moment is the first meeting of Winn and Kira, where she's like, "Oh, you still mourning that dude? Like, who cares?" And
he wanted to die. He was happy to give his life for all of this.
Yeah, he was happy. He was happy that I take all the credit. Like, oh yeah, oh right, I remember him. Yeah, he was that guy, you know. And it's like it is so satisfyingly enraging, her performance in that for sure.
The first 10 minutes of this episode.
Yeah, and I think I said it earlier that Louise Fletcher rescues a lot of not great episodes because of how watchable she is.
Mm-hmm.
That even if the plot doesn't make a lot of sense and I don't like the writing, she's like she's never unwelcome on my screen. Like, I'm always happy to see her, even if it's not great. So she has been the best thing in a lot of bad episodes. So there we go. Let's hand out some stem bolt, shall we?
Yeah, I'm gonna save the bumper because we already had the conversation. So now we're just giving numbers.
Yeah.
Look, it's hard, man. I've even tried to use this whole hour and a half to talk myself up. I mean, I understand the mode. It just, like you said, it's just not firing on all cylinders. We know they can write a better episode, and we've enumerated many of the opportunities they could have had. I think really the only thing that's achieved here, if I was looking at like wins, is that we kind of put a bow on Bareil, and maybe we have a new love interest for Kira. Really, I think they were setting that table, so that's a win, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Kai Winn has more reasons to be pissed off, so hopefully we get to see more of her. Outside of that, the B story was entirely forgettable for me. I don't even need anybody to defend it. I thought it was stupid. I didn't think it literally had anything to say. No teeth, and it wasn't even interesting. And done with it. Yeah, and Nana was great, and Louise Fletcher was great. To be honest, I don't even find the guy playing Shakaar to be particularly Exciting?
No, well, because he's bland, generic white dude.
Yeah.
Like, he's not bad.
I found
but there's
one-arm
nothing
guy to be much more compelling.
Yeah, but that's a really good point. And like, it is not the actor's fault.
No.
But like,
no. Yeah.
why is he like random, like freaking Aryan white guy, bland? Like, why isn't Shakaar somebody really interesting and really compelling? And like, why doesn't he have one arm? Why doesn't he have one eye? Why isn't he just someone you don't expect and not like the blandest white bread dude out there? Like,
I think for the same reason Bareil was who Bareil was. I think that's central casting, right? They're like, we need the tall, white, handsome guy to be opposite Kira.
And I think that's remnants of the 90s.
Yes.
Like, I don't think that he would be cast so boring today.
I don't know that, but feel very confident.
No,
in it.
he's like Wonder Bread.
Yeah. Yes. But less tasty. Anyway.
But he was much more compelling when he was Wonder Boning Crusher's grandma.
Now that sounded I was into. So anyway, long story short, I don't want to say it's bad, but it's just not. It's not up to snuff. I would be like, send her back for another pass. Yeah. I would garner that they probably had a couple passes at this.
I mean,
this is what they came
there's
up
a great episode that could have been done. This could be like a two-parter, like action thriller, suspense, like political intrigue. It could be so good.
So a C is 70.
Yeah.
C minus 67.
67. That's a high D technically. But no, I'm with you. I'm giving it a 69. Like, I'm just disappointed. Like, I've said it 100 times already. There's a fantastic episode with this basic story structure, and they blanded it up. Like, the fact that we're fighting over soil reclamators, boring.
But keep the excitement. The excitement is, so that's a 69 and a 67. Yeah. The excitement is that, if I'm not mistaken, seasons 1 and 2, the penultimate episodes of the seasons have been excellent.
Yeah, well, actually, you know what? I can tell you. Well, right. Season 1, the penultimate episode was Duet.
Right.
I mean, phenomenal. Season 2, it was Tribunal, which was good, which was very good. Yeah. So next week we're going to be doing Facets. There are only 2 more episodes of season 3, and then hold on to your butts, because season 4 is coming. Oh, I mean, it will never be the same once we start season 4. So,
okay. We'll be doing another shadow drop next week, Keith, for this show.
Are we?
Yeah, because I have to do that thing with Joe.
Oh, you're doing the reading. That's right. Okay, well, that'll be fun. It'll be fun to see how that goes. Yeah, so there you go. We will see you back next week with Facets. We'll see you back on Friday with another episode of Strange New Show. I still have to watch and note it before we do it tomorrow. And on Sunday, we'll be back with more Star Trek toys and Monday K&M Geekly. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you back here next week. Till then, this has been Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.